Recently, there has been quite a lot of talk about a mega project called The Line, which is to be built in Saudi Arabia. Why has the project created so much buzz? Well, The Line is said to be the largest construction project in the history of mankind. Construction of The Line has just begun, but the scale of the project is expected to be so outrageous that many people do not believe it will ever be completed. Let's see what we know today about the project and ask ourselves how likely, or maybe how unlikely, is the completion of the project. The construction plans were first publicly announced in July 2022. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, proposed the construction of two skyscrapers located parallel to each other made of reflective glass, which would not be surprising if not for the fact that these buildings, being 500 meters or 1,640 feet tall, are also supposed to be 170 kilometers long. This length would correspond to 2 rows of 2,000 New York's One World Trade Center buildings each. The city is to be located in the northwestern part of Saudi Arabia in the Tabuk province and stretch from the coast of the Red Sea to the town of Tabuk. It is pretty common in the Middle East for the province to bear the same name as the main city in that province. For example, the city of Dubai and the Emirate of Dubai. But The Line is not only the largest construction project ever proposed, it is also an entirely new concept of what a city should look like. There are no cars in The Line, and everything you need in everyday life is within a maximum of 5-minute walk. All the energy needed for the city to function is to be produced by wind turbines and solar panels, and the water is to be supplied by an emission-free seawater desalination plant. Those will make The Line the first carbon-neutral city in the world. Now, considering the above information, it is not surprising that the proposal was met with admiration on the one hand, but with a huge dose of disbelief on the other. After all, for a long time, the only thing that existed with regards to The Line were YouTube trailers with millions of views, and of course, many grand promises made by the Sheikh. Some people thought The Line was just a marketing ploy to draw the world's attention to Saudi Arabia, and I don't blame them for it. However, as it turned out, about 3 months after the construction plans were announced, the first recordings of the construction site were released, showing dozens of excavators preparing the site for the construction of the foundation of the project. Just take a look at the recordings. The excavation stretches deep inland, leaving a grand impact that's showcased in the drone shots you're seeing right now. In addition to the work on the foundation of the project, there are many changes in the area, not far from the nearby mountains. There is a housing estate with offices and residential buildings, as well as a football field, several swimming pools, and the NEOM Experience Center. The photos are not updated very often, hence most likely many more buildings were built in the area since. Now that we have clear evidence that the construction has begun, the question arises as to how it will all play out. There is nothing in the entire world that can match the scale of The Line, also called NEOM, but its future remains unclear. We can assume 3 main scenarios. Scenario number 1, it will stop after a few months or years and no one will ever end up living in The Line. The Middle East is littered with unfinished mega projects. You don't have to look far. Just look at the Jeddah Tower, another project also located in Saudi Arabia, or the famous Dubai Creek Tower, which was supposed to be ready years ago, yet only the foundations have been laid so far. Scenario number 2, the project will actually be completed. Saudi Arabia has recently invested heavily in its development and moving away from oil as its main source of income. And these plans are taken very seriously. This is not just one project taken out of context, but rather a part of a wide-ranging and long-term plan, which may result in NEOM being completed despite the opinions of many critics around the world. It must be said that many of The Line's assumptions are possible to implement in practice. For example, the lack of cars, or generating its own energy exclusively from renewable sources, or implementing the idea of the so-called vertical living. It is all possible. However, when it comes to the size of the project, it just seems completely unfeasible. And the last scenario, the construction will not be completed, but a short section will be put into use, which will be fully functional and it will actually be inhabited by people. NEOM is to be the height of the One World Trade Center building, which took 8 years to complete, but at the same time, it's supposed to be 170 kilometers long. Like I said before, it's like building a row of 2,000 World Trade Centers side by side, and it's actually 4,000 because the project consists of 2 rows of 170 kilometers each. In theory, if we multiply the 8 years it took to build one World Trade Center by 4,000, it should take about 32,000 years to build. In practice, this time would probably end up being shorter. Firstly, due to the elongated shape of the line, construction can be carried out on many sections simultaneously. And secondly, the most modern techniques will certainly be used in the construction process, which will significantly speed it up. However, even taking into account the above arguments, the construction of a project of this size could take several hundred years to complete. There is also another large project in the world that can show us how much of a pipe dream building the line really is. It's the Three Gorges Dam in China. It's 180 meters high and 2.3 kilometers long, and it took 40,000 workers 17 years to build it. It is a structure that is relatively small compared to the planned size of the line, and yet the construction took a very long time. Considering this fact, completing the line seems completely impossible. But wait a minute, who said the whole thing had to be finished at once? The line is being built as a 5-minute city, which means that you could theoretically build one or more of these sections at the time and not have to complete the entire 170 kilometers for people to move in. In addition, the height of the line can be adjusted, for example by reducing it by half, and it will not disturb the concept of a 5-minute city. Taking such steps would significantly speed up construction, and taking into account the modularity of the project, it is very possible that the line will turn out to be a success, but on a much smaller scale. Then over time, the project will be consistently expanded. Probably in this way, the line will never reach the planned 170 kilometers, but it will still be a very interesting and groundbreaking project. If this scenario plays out, the line will still be the first city in the world built in the shape of a line, still the first car-free city, still the first zero-carbon city, and the first city where everything residents need to live is within a 5-minute walk. Until now, no city in the world has been able to achieve these goals because most cities are focused around and often built with cars in mind, making it impossible to completely remove them. The city of the line, on the other hand, is built entirely from scratch and with no cars in mind, so everything else, its entire infrastructure, will be prepared for it. It is thanks to the lack of cars that a concept of a 5-minute city is even possible. Or perhaps it's the other way around. Because normal cities nowadays are built with cars in mind, they are not designed to get everywhere on foot in 5 minutes. For example, knowing that people use cars, we would build one large shopping mall in the city center to which everyone would have to commute by car. But if there were no cars, no one would want to walk such a distance, and it will result in the creation of more but smaller mini malls that anyone can comfortably walk to. When designing the line, however, the fact that perhaps not everything can be built in this way was taken into consideration, and that, for example, we may want to visit our friends living on the other side of the city, so there will also be a rail system that will allow for longer distance travel. The first residents are due to move in 2030, and they will likely live only in a tiny fraction of the line's proposed 170 kilometers. So which of these three scenarios is the most likely? As far as I know, few experts agreed that the project is viable at all, especially given the very short time it is expected to be commissioned. What do you think? Since the construction has started, is there a chance it will be completed? Will anyone actually live in the line, or will it remain a huge abandoned construction site forever? Let me know in the comments below, and see you in the next episode.